Southwest Asia through time. Go back some 12,000 years to the region of Southwest Asia. Why? You could witness the dawn of civilization. People in this region began to settle down as farmers around 12,000 years ago. They created the world's first civilizations.
How do values shape culture? Think of the values that you have as a person or family. What do you value? Time, money, profits, the economy, nature, the environment, education, entertainment, trends, styles. How do values shape a culture? Meet Hammurabi and unlock the importance of this ancient code of laws.
French archaeologists found it buried in the sands of what is now Iran in 1901. The pieces of a great pillar of black stone, carved in the ancient region of Mesopotamia more than 3,600 years earlier. At the top of the massive pillar, or stele, were two figures, the ancient Babylonian sun god, flames coming from his shoulders, and Hammurabi, the most famous king of Babylon. Hammurabi had turned Babylon into an empire, conquering independent city-states throughout the Fertile Crescent, the rich farmland between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. To establish order and unify all of these different cities and people, Hammurabi needed one universal set of laws to, as he wrote, bring about the rule of righteousness in the land to destroy the wicked and the evildoers, so that the strong should not harm the weak. More than 250 of those laws are carved in columns onto this stele, in characters and symbols, one of the oldest known written codes of conduct setting out rules of behavior and specific, often harsh punishments. If anyone is committing a robbery and is caught, then he shall be put to death, states law number 22. More than 30 laws call for the guilty to be put to death, sometimes in gruesome ways, by being impaled, burned, or thrown into water. That meant being tossed in the Euphrates River. If the accused drowned, it was seen as proof of guilt because the gods didn't save him or her. But if the river proved that the accused is not guilty and he escaped unhurt, reads the code, the accused was innocent, and then he who had brought the accusation shall be put to death. Causing a death was often punishable by death. If a builder constructed a house that collapsed and killed the homeowner, that builder shall be put to death. If the homeowner's son was killed in the collapse, the son of that builder shall be put to death. Punishment was often reciprocal. If a man put out the eye of another man, his eye shall be put out, reads law number 196. One of the most famous in that code, but eye for an eye justice wasn't applied equally. Punishments varied depending on the social class of both the accused and the accuser. If a higher class landowner put out the eye of a commoner, for example, he only had to pay a fine of 1 gold mina. According to the code, women in every social class had lower status than men. Several laws restricted what women could do, but others protected women's rights to inherit a field, a garden, or a house, and to divorce their husbands. A wife who could prove abandonment or neglect could take her dowry and go back to her father's house. Laws in the code cover liability, malpractice, trade, even the minimum wage to be paid to workers in specific occupations. 6 gur of corn per year for an ox driver, 8 gur for a cattle or sheep herder, 4 gyras for a rope maker and 5 gyras for a potter. Elements of law and justice carved in the pillar are still found printed in modern law books, thousands of years later. The presumption of innocence, for example, and the right of two parties in dispute to bring their case before a judge and provide evidence and witnesses. It seems clear Hammurabi meant the code to stand as a permanent set of legal precedents. Most of the monument has survived for thousands of years, an ancient system of law and order set in stone.
All right. So even though Hammurabi was a dictator, he protected the weak from the strong.
Lesson 1. Origins of Civilization in Southwest Asia. Southwest Asia is the birthplace of the world's oldest civilization. Ideas and ways of living that developed here have helped shape modern cultures around the world. Get ready to read.
Imagine that you're looking for a place for your people to live. You come to a valley between two rivers. The soil is rich, perfect for growing crops to feed your people. So you settle in the valley. But there's a problem. Summers are hot and dry, and your crops might wither and die. And the rivers flood in the spring, leaving behind moist, fertile soil, but sometimes causing floods and even washing away whole villages. What should you do? Leave the fertile valley or try to adapt? This was the dilemma facing the Sumerians. They lived in the Fertile Crescent, which stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the Persian Gulf. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was known as Mesopotamia. Sumer was at the southern end of the crescent in what is modern-day Iraq. So, how do you cope with these challenges? Technology. Technology, both then and now, means the practical application of knowledge to accomplish a task. The Sumerians used increasingly specialized knowledge to manage the problems caused by flooding and drought. To control flooding, they built embankments or earthen walls along the Euphrates River. They built villages on man-made mounds of dirt to keep them from being washed away during the spring floods. But they still had to find a technology that would let them bring water to their crops in the hot, dry summer. The solution to the problem was canals. Embankments rose above the ground and canals were dug into the ground. A system of canals could move water from the river to wherever it was needed, keeping large areas of farmland moist all summer long. This very basic early technology is called irrigation. So the Sumerians adapted to their location. They didn't have to keep moving from place to place, constantly starting over. This meant they had time to invent things that helped them increase their food supply. Things such as the plow and a seed funnel that planted seeds at the same time the field was being plowed. They made great advancements, including their invention of the wheel. Here's a pattern that repeats itself throughout history. When food is abundant, populations grow and civilization develops. So why did the Sumerians' civilization develop? Think for a minute about the cooperation and organization needed to build and maintain a system of embankments and canals, and the laws it would take to decide who gets water and when. That means some sort of government. Now, think about this. Why did the Sumerians' transformations of their environment and society lead to the development of a written language?
Startup. Look at this image of the ruins of the ancient city of Uruk in modern-day Iraq. What changes might have enabled hunters and gatherers to settle down and build cities like Uruk? Guiding questions. How did people begin farming in Southwest Asia? How did the farmers of Mesopotamia adapt to their environment? What were the key features of Sumer as a civilization? Vocabulary. Domesticate. Neolithic Revolution. Mesopotamia. Irrigate. city-state, polytheism, cuneiform, academic vocabulary, fertile, distinct. The first farmers. Around 12,000 years ago, hunters and gatherers in Southwest Asia began to settle in villages as Earth's climate became milder. As these nomads settled down, they began to notice that seeds from the crops they had gathered grew into plants they could eat. They planted those seeds and later harvested the crop. In this way, they learned how to farm. These early farmers also learned how to capture animals, raise them in herds, and domesticate them. To domesticate is to train the growth of a plant or behavior of an animal in ways useful to humans. The period when the introduction of agriculture led people to move from nomadic to settled life is the Neolithic Revolution, or Agricultural Revolution. The development of agriculture, or farming, was a major turning point in human history. Southwest Asia was probably the first place where the Neolithic Revolution occurred. Most likely it happened in the hilly northern Fertile Crescent, in what are now northern Syria, central and eastern Turkey, northern Iraq, and western Iran. The village of Çatalhöyük, in what is today southern Turkey, was one of the largest Neolithic farming communities. It emerged around 7000 BCE. Çatalhöyük covered 34 acres and had a population of between 3,000 and 8,000 people. Reading check. Identify cause and effect. How did people's lives change when they learned to farm?
Analyze images. The people of Çatalhöyük lived in rectangular houses made of mud brick. People entered the houses from the roof using ladders. Draw a conclusion. How might living close together in this way benefit the people of Çatalhöyük? First, maybe you could practice saying the word Çatalhöyük. I used to always say Çatalhöyük, but it's Çatalhöyük. How might people living close together in this way benefit the people of Çatalhöyük? There's the ladders that take them on top. It looks like they have doors on top of their houses. These openings are so you can see what it looks like inside. They don't have big holes. But in both situations, it looks as though they are praying in their house towards maybe an altar that they have set up in their house. There's some gardening going on outside. Appears to be a market down here where people are buying or trading. All right, so there's your introduction to an early civilization, the very first farmers. And depending on where you live, you may be able to look out your window and see a farm field. Another connection that we have to the ancient civilizations besides farming would be irrigation. Do you live on a street that has a ditch along the side of the road? At this time during the school year, oftentimes to give students a break from sitting in the classroom, I used to take the students for a walk out the front door. And I would say, "What's that over there?" And along North Curtis Road is a ditch, very deep ditch. And there are ditches along the edges of the fields that flow into the larger ditch. And there is a ditch behind the field I live on that goes all the way down to North Curtis, to that big ditch. Well, it has some flow there. It actually flows to Norden Road. All right. You learned about the invention of the wheel in that first video. All right. I'm going to go ahead and stop there today. Make sure you finish by answering the questions. Thank you.